questions. Let's get to this LEC VOD review. Let's go. Match of the week, baby. Only match that happened in the week. Vitality versus G2 Esports. So if you do donate from here, unfortunately, we'll get to it after the stream. After the VOD review ends, we'll get to it. Here's the scene. But let's set the scene in our usual way. If you guys are joining us, we've been going a long time, so we've got different time zones here, I'm sure. We like to start off with a bit of an overview. Let's learn a bit about the LEC. So, as I said during the start of the series, I never want to present you guys a VOD review of a game, Team X versus Team Y and Region Z. I want to always drill down into what those regional tendencies are, especially if they're interesting, and understand the context of where that series is being played. So, it's being played in Europe, the LEC. So we're looking at Games of Legends, gamesoflegends.com, shout out, it's the best League of Legends stats website on the internet. And we're looking at LEC trends. So just like in the LCK, Lucian is high priority, everything else below 80% already compared to our first series. And for our non-LCK, for our LCK only watchers, you'll notice good old Karthus jungle, big thing in this region. Nothing in my region except for in Challengers and one game when we saw it played from good old Spirit. They blind pick Alistar a lot more. That's another big thing in EU. Cassiopeia is not winning, but that's kind of true everywhere. The Braum win rate's really low. I haven't really followed close enough to understand that completely. EU Jace is like some super poggers stuff, apparently. EU Jace, man. EU Olaf. Let's find out about EU Olaf. EU Olaf, also nice. This Olaf win rate is way higher than North America. Remember, North America is 0-9, 11-5. So already, you can tell a bit about a region by reading the picks. The fact that Jace and Olaf are winning tells you they can play tempo drafts and they don't just have to team fight, which tells you there's less ARAMs. So it's pretty cool that we learned that from just looking at the trends, but that's what trends are for. Let's find some surprises, though. Shout out in the chat if there's any champions that catch you off guard, given that we've reviewed 3 other regions. It's our first LEC review. I know that Kennen priority in this region's higher. I'm kind of there and kind of not. I think Kennen's kind of overrated as a champion, but I think he does some things really well. Any other big surprises here? The Draven win rate's very high, but I think people only pick Draven in a certain scenario. I say that, but there's a lot of Draven bans and Draven first rounds. So I think Draven's just popping off in the 2v2. There was a really good game. Where was this? The Sandbox versus Griffin that I'm not going to VOD review today. If you go and watch the game where it's first round Draven, it might be game number 1. That's a really good sign of what happens in Korea when Draven is picked. If you guys didn't see that game, I suggest watching it. You don't have to watch the early game, but the early game around the Draven of late invade bot side. So that was Galio Kalista first round on the red side for Griffin. So they took Galio Kalista, and then the enemy locked in Draven lane. Super good Draven lane around here. And then Griffin locked Braum. So they actually abandoned their plan to have Galio Kalista the strongest 2v2 in order to get the Braum pick to allow them to have a level 1 to invade bot side of the jungle, create vertical jungling around the non-Draven lane and below summoners. So it's a pretty big draft snafu, right? Or draft snafu, I would say snafu on 9.4 to abandon your Galio flex pick that you know is probably Kalista Galio, the god tier duo, to go Braum, to say definitely Galio mid, definitely Braum support, definitely, I think it was either Lucian or Kalista as an AD carry. But they did that and then had the level 1 plan to invade bot side and get summoners down. And it's not like it all played out perfectly, but that's the big thing, is that in Korea, you never just get to 2v2 lane as Draven. That's what they always try to do. Good teams will never let you 2v2 2v2 as Draven. As someone's mentioning my title, I should change that. Let me change the title for this VOD review. Let's do that. This button. Papa Smithy VOD review. I'm going to change the title, guys, so bear with me for 1 second. Good point. I want people to know that I'm doing some LEC, baby. Edit. Team Vitality versus, I almost wrote Griffin. G2. I almost wrote Gamers 2. Shout out to Gamers 2. So, okay. Title is updated. So we got some LEC action going on. So, going back to the tendencies here. Yeah, Draven gets to honestly lane 2v2 a lot more in this region, so it wins more. Is kind of my read there. Cassio being low, it's just a multitude of things. Her bounce level was brought down. Teams play objectives with her really badly. When we see her in the 2v2 lane, they always go Ludens and then go around a Mountain Drake or around a Baron and then can't turn for the fight. It's just one of those icky champs where usually the wrong player is playing it, so it actually doesn't work out. And I actually don't think Cassio mid is very good. Plus, there's a lot of hard CC and Gallios and stuff that just ruin a day as a short-range mage. So, I think, yeah, Cassio's a tricky champ, and teams kind of just didn't play her and didn't practice her for a long time because she was permabanned, and then it was a bit yucky, and now she's gone. So, goodbye to Cassiopeia. You will not be missed, in my opinion. Nocturne win rate a bit lower than I would expect, but anyways, we're getting a feel. Things I notice when I watch LEC, Alistar first pick and Kennen first pick are very different. And Karthus. So Karthus, Alistar, priority, and Kennen priority much higher in this region. A lot of trends have begun in this region. So Aurelia as a blind pick. Vedius is really good at keeping on top of these things because he can talk to the LEC players. But a lot of trends here. They have their crazy stuff. Sejuani top, never forget. It's decent. But just like my region has crazy stuff that never gets repeated. But yeah, otherwise here, not too much surprising. So that's kind of the lens in which we are in. Let's just load up on the autonomous some specifics about the teams we're watching. So G2 versus Vitality. It was 1 and 2 at the time. Getting nice and congested around here. That's hype. Well, I'm not going to include Schalke. They're having problems. Okay, nice and congested around here, which means the last week of the season will be fun. G2 Esports. They're the sort of team that staring at their most played champions doesn't really tell you much. Like, because they played a lot of kind of one-off strategies and crazy things. You look at their most played comp, which I like to do. Like, it's not actually a comp they play together, but it's nice to look at. You know, LeBlanc Zoe mid lane, Karthus Olaf. They're so different, but it's funny because like Karthus can be used in an aggressive sense, but it's usually like trying to avoid action, right? But Olaf, Elise, Lee Sin, these are kind of tempo junglers, and then yeah, so it's a bit all over the place. But the Karthus is just the teams have a different read on how powerful that is, and people aren't willing to punish it in the same way that they threaten to do in Korea. In case you guys are wondering, so LS is the ultimate on the case with Karthus and driving that into the ground. I actually think Karthus is way better than Korea has rated it. But Korean junglers never want to pick a jungle that doesn't have CC and that can't skirmish in kind of a punishing way. You know what I mean? Like, Camille can punish someone who's in the wrong spot, but Karthus can just kind of throw Skittles at them. And they just hate champions like Karthus and champions like Ivern. They almost never see any picks in Korea. And I think that's short-sighted. That was like Sejuani blind pick days. You can easily pick Karthus into that. Never did that. There was a long time where Ivern was really good. No one would play it. We had our first Ivern was Trick in BBQ Oliver's, but that's for different reasons. And then Peanut played it and tried to learn it from him over in MSI 2017. They hate stuff like that. Yes, I know the W is CC, but guys, just like I say, they have no wave clear when there's people who have 500 range. You know what I mean? Like, Koreans just hate those sort of junglers. It's why I keep telling them that Nunu is good, and Nunu was nerfed since I told them this, and no one believes me. And I'm like, no, Nunu is really good. Like, but people just don't believe you here. So, Korean junglers, they have their vices, and their vices do not include Karthus. Wunder just picks kind of whatever has combat advantage on the top side. Jarvan top, Jace top, like Aurelia. Like, we know what he's trying to find priority, and usually has to blind pick it to do so. And then bot lane's a bit of everything. Like, shout out to Perks. He's played everything, man. He's rolling through, and some picks are a little bit better than others, but they're fine. And then meta slave support. So Mickey X is actually the only boring player. Everyone else is on top of it. But that's the G2 way. Vitality is so fun to watch. This will sound biased because obviously everyone knows I'm an LCK caster, but I love watching Mowgli. Any other LEC fans here love watching Mowgli? This guy's forward percentage, which obviously I don't have written down here. Maybe someone can tweet at me. Maybe someone like Vedius hiding in the chat. Mowgli's forward percentage must be like just the most insane. Like, he is the biggest jerk. He just runs into enemy jungles, EQing people, skipping camps. He's playing Ning style, but maybe even more aggressive than Ning. Like, there's no Kayn in this match history, but holy crap, man. Mowgli is so in there. This guy, he's also a really sweet human being. Like, I know he's a super hardworking kid, really nice, but he is just like some sort of like carpet snake in the LCK, like just in the LEC that he wasn't in Korea. Like, he drafted, he was pretty much more standard in Korea. Like, he was pretty crazy on his Olaf. Like, he was definitely one of those Olafs that would like stand behind the Baron pit on. If you're a blue side Olaf, he'd like stand behind the Baron pit and like attack people at red buff, then flash smite it. Instead of going for a 50-50, like he would like let his team burn it down and then try. He's a crazy guy, but man, a lot of respect for Mowgli. He's really fun to watch. And Vitality play live by the sword, die by the sword aggressive, so I really like watching them because they're so different to my region. Like, we don't have an analog to Vitality, so yeah. I mean, some people here saying Mowgli isn't good. I think he's been tasked with a very specific thing to do. And he does it every time, and he doesn't always nail the execution, but I think he's consistently aggressive, which I think is hard to not feed on. It's not like his KDA is like great, but it's not terrible. 3.6, 5.4, like they've won less games, so it's fun. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch Mowgli play for sure. I can't get forward percentages easily, so I don't get to see the cool stats. The coolest stat I ever saw was there was one KT split where Deft had a 67% forward percentage average. What does it mean to be ahead of the middle 67% of the time? The average of the league was like 9% to 20%, and he had a 67% forward percentage. It was unbelievable. So, just to promise that we're going to actually do this VOD review, we should get into it. Vitality versus G2, boys and girls. Let's go. 6 hours, 23 minutes in. We're rolling on game number 4.
Well, the priority is in this game today. And immediately we see the Karthus taken away. Now, while that is a threatening pick in the hands of Jankos, it did certainly suffer yesterday. The superior lane pressure from Splice meant that pick had a really hard time getting a lot done in the early game. Jay's going
LEC time. And yes, I did strategically put the LCK games on when the LCK stream usually is on, and end with the LEC stream during European prime hours. Let's get some Europeans in here for some games. Now, this is one that will probably be very different, because remember, we spent all of our first VOD review focusing on, alright, we know this was a really good series between SKT and Griffin. Can we get every little nugget out to make sure it was all really smart and not just any decisions were like poor decisions? And we found like 2 half-poor decisions in 3 VODs. There were a lot of Fiesta decisions in this game, so that's fine. So here we go with the pick ban. Already really different, right? So, champions that wouldn't be banned in Korea. Draven, LeBlanc, infrequently. We don't have Nico yet, for some reason. I was on the Nico hype train weeks ago. You guys listened to my TSM VOD review a week ago before we had Nico, about on-hit Nico. And then in the weeks since I did that VOD review, everyone's like, man, this on-hit thing is good. And I'm like, yeah, definitely. Skara was the guy there. Again, I saw on-hit Nico on Skara's stream like a month ago. And I was like, that looks really strong. And then stuck with that as an opinion. And he started playing it more reliably recently. But the first time I saw it, I was like, this seems like an abuse case. And now we know that it is. So screw Nico. She's the worst. I hope that she disappears forever in terms of on-hit build. I think AP Nico is fine. But on-hit Nico is no. So I hope the hotfix is live in Korea soon. We'll roll the draft here on this one. The Karthus ban, that's new. Aurelia ban, first round. It could happen. My read is that Aurelia is stronger as a blind pick, is weaker as a blind pick top player than we feel right now, but that's just kind of where we are at the moment. Oops. So Ryze first round is different, right? If this is Korea, it's Kalista taken at this pick. It's Kalista Galio as an entire duo lane because then you're not showing anything about your draft. The Ryze pick here is very interesting. I've seen the chat talk about how Irelia is a three-way flex for G2, kind of like how it is for Vulcan, for Clutch. Yeah, I mean that's relevant for sure. At the end of the day, like, yeah, I guess the fact that they've been willing to show it in more roles is a reason to ban it, but it's just different, right, to Korea. That's kind of the bigger point I'm trying to put out there. It makes sense specifically against G2. The Ryze pick here is very interesting. Yes, it's a three-way flex for them as well. Ryze is a blocker pick for Lissandra. It just kind of, at all points, is able to get through Lissandra and then it outscales. And it is very flexible. So I don't mind it as a first-round pick. I'm just noting something that's different here and then trying to fully understand it in the context of how many things to come through. It's also a takeaway from Jizuke, right? It is a really reliable pick for him. I always think of him as a Ryze Echo player. That is the picks he plays. So I'd love to know if it was, let's take it. I want to know what the primary reason it was locked in first. Is it just Jizuke would have taken it, let's deny it from them, and they're not as good a team without it? Is it related to the fact they're going to take the later Camille for the solo lanes? Like, is it all those things? Like, I'd love to know the first reason it was done. Anyway, just musings. We have a lot of people who know a lot about G2 on the chat, so it's really good to have that here. It's going to be a different kind of feel of a VOD review. First jungle choice is Jarvan, but it's a flex jungle choice, so I think that's strong. Cinderhulk Jarvan, of course, is picking up more and more steam around the world. It's even starting to become a pick in Korea, so EU was definitely ahead of that, and they were the first top lane Jarvan region. Thankfully, the Summoner Aerie is gone from support and top lane. Never come back, please. And it's Lissandra anyway, and I don't mind this at all. If you think about what Vitality have drafted in the first round, what kind of team they play, Jizuke will take the roam when he can take the roam. Like, he's getting out of lane fast player, and he has the most reliable playmaker mid laner. They have power draft AD carry, and they have level 2 onwards invading and ganking junglers. So you are kind of self-counterpicking yourself. You have to live with Ryze versus Lissandra, but it's not in any way a bad thing. And it gets you a lot. And there was just no way this was not going to be a Kalista here. So they know that they're not going to lose Kalista, and they're happy to take Ryze away. So I imagine the takeaway part is pretty big here on the side of taking away from Jizuke. I love that Vedius is able to pull up this really random, super old Kalista game. I love that stuff. As you guys know, I always do that stuff. So I mean that in not an ironic way. Like, good job, Vedius. I love your random story about the Kalista and the troll game. Speaking of troll games, it's going to be an interesting week with G2 locked at first. So Lucian Braum gone, Lucian Alistar gone. You don't really care about supports that much here if you're Kalista, in my opinion. Like, if this is the... I mean, Jarvan's locked in, right? Otherwise, you'd think about Nocturne. Nocturne's really good at shutting down a Kalista. Otherwise, Kalista kind of always does her thing. Like, Cassio's really frustrating for her. But even then, it's not a big deal. So when it comes to jungle pool, as an answering jungler, I don't think any one jungle band does anything if you're going Jarvan, because Jarvan kind of does everything, right? Without ever doing too much. Someone in the chat mentioning Thresh. You could have banned it. Thresh is not so good against Galio. It's not that easy to do much against really any of the members of what G2 have. It is tier list strong, but was nerfed pretty significantly on 9.4 in terms of laning impact. So I actually feel like when it comes to this scenario, not banning Thresh is correct from the side of G2.
First pick that I have seen floating around. So I'm curious if it comes up. I'm talking a little bit more about it, but there are some answers you can try against the Galio.
I like how Vedius clearly talked to someone who's like, by the way, this is the counter to Galio. And then Vedius like, oh, can I talk about that? And they were like, no, don't say it unless it's revealed. Which happens a lot. Just to be clear, that happens a lot. That we're told about picks that we can't talk about because you're friends with players. But when he presents it that way, I think that's a bit of a snafu because it feels like I'm losing something because I don't find out what the pick is. Like, it feels like he's being that guy who's like, yeah, I know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you. Like, you didn't need to tell me that. You're just being a jerk. And I know it's because he started the sentence and he was like, oops, I maybe went too far in one direction on the sentence, but yeah, you're a jerk, Vedius, what we learned from this.
I don't think Thresh is the best one, because I think at level 3 there's a real risk of you getting collapsed upon.
Renekton's the other pick. It wasn't seen in the most picked, but Renekton right now is the 9.4 champion. Oh, Vedius is in the chat. All right, let's give good old Vedius the mod. Vedius official. I got a jerk mod, right? So if you have any problems, message the jerk mod. Renekton Blind is the new pick. It's been big in the LPL. I think LEC picked up really quickly. It abuses Conqueror really well. Korean teams hate Renekton these days, which is kind of ironic, right? Because we had Renekton Shyvana for a million years matchup in Season 4, but or maybe it was Season 3. I want to say Season 4. But Renekton's really good at being Renekton, but it's still a champion that gets so easily kited, and I feel like if you're not fighting a lot with Renekton, you can't just wait for the team fight. Like, Renekton's not garbage in team fights like it used to be, where like he either built full tank and was terrible or built damage and died. Conqueror actually gives him stickiness and damage reliability, and it's pretty cool that you're like every tick of your Dominus is proccing the Conqueror and stuff like that. But and Conqueror damage if you get the true damage portion to be full. But I'm biased against Renekton. Unlike a previous year, heard me being biased for Karthus. I think Renekton can be subverted if you choose when fights happen and when fights don't, and Korean teams put so much into that. Anyways, we'll zoom in here. It is very powerful. It was like perma-picked. I think it was picked 5 games in a row before this series, so it makes sense that it happened. So we're expecting jungle at this point. The Rek'Sai is the obvious one. Lee Sin has a better matchup into Jarvan than Rek'Sai, I think. It's not that different, but I'm a bigger fan of the Lee Sin here. Lee Sin also, the kick has a lot of value here that the Rek'Sai Aura doesn't. Like, Rek'Sai Aura has no impact on Jizuke, on the Lissandra, with the immune. So I think kicking away is probably more valuable than the Rek'Sai ult. And also they have a lot of globals here, so it means the playmaking can be more creative. So from a playmaking perspective, I prefer the Lee Sin over Rek'Sai, which is left available.
Interesting. From what Rek'Sai was considered a counter to Lee Sin as well, so it does feel a little bit odd. But of course, this is a very new Rek'Sai. A lot of changes have come since we've seen that matchup. So to me, this implies that they're expecting the Jarvans going to the jungle. Lee Sin typically does well in terms of 2v2 and early skirmishing against the champion. But with so much mobility on the side of Vitality, it surprises me. They would look to prioritize this Lee Sin. I feel like the Rek'Sai would have been stronger. But
so it ends up being Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai is the jungle pick here. Still as strong in the early game. I had forgotten that it was a Rek'Sai jungle. It doesn't matter. Rek'Sai is good. Very good answer to Lee Sin. It's how I knew Rek'Sai was coming back after the buffs. Was not so much the buff power level and the Conqueror synergy, but Rek'Sai is a famous hard counter to Lee Sin because you unburrow out the second Q. The second Q damage will never proc if you choose the right unburrow. It's not very high skill intensiveness to happen. And Rek'Sai is a champion and has very low mechanical execution requirement. She's very reliable in what she does, and that's why she should always be a staple of pro when her numbers are there, because if you can always do the same thing like Ryze has been able to do most of his shelf life, that's better than something else which could do better but on average will do worse, just because Rek'Sai will always do all her things. She's super consistent, so the fact that she also has the matchup against Lee Sin makes it a slam dunk pick here for Mowgli. Closing out the draft. Let's see the final champs and remember what's going on. So it ends up being Trundle support, which is an EU special. It's always been EU's thing. EU and LPL had the most Trundle support. Korea had some, but those were the regions that really loved it. And given that, you think about where they've chosen the Trundle. And I wasn't a huge fan of this Trundle here. When I think about what it does, like I like Trundle in some scenarios where the pillar can be really powerful, and the pillar is kind of annoying. And yes, in lane, I guess around level 6 you can do some cool stuff in lane, but the moment you see Trundle, you're never going to open up on an aggressive Fates call, so the defensive Fates call will get him out of dodge. And in a team fight, I wasn't a huge fan of the Trundle here is all I'm going to say. Like, yes, it's pretty good against Galio or tank lineups, but Galio is going to be on a budget anyway. So, yeah, I wasn't huge on Jack Troll's selection here, but it obviously has some relevance. Just not a big fan of the pick. And then we end up with the Camille, because they get the lane assignments. Now they know it's Jarvan top lane. Camille has a really strong outscale matchup against Jarvan. Jarvan in the early game can do a lot of things to him, but Camille, if you get vertical jungling or once you hit 2 items, has a huge winning lane matchup into Jarvan. Both Renekton and Camille famously smash Jarvan in the 1v1, so it's a risky choice. But they're obviously not priced into picking tanks because the Trundle was just there, and it's also G2, and Wunder isn't like as strong on those. With this comp, as the comps line up right now, Vitality have excellent comp for how Vitality play, because every lane, top and mid, have crazy hard CC and Rek'Sai is reliable, so you just bonanza gank those lanes a million times. Lucian and Trundle is kind of not that self-sufficient, so it's a bit of a weird 2v2 to deal with such a draft, but you can also pack up and go bot lane, so you can just go to the bot lane and make things happen. Whereas for Fnatic, they have really, really strong side lanes here. Like Ryze, Camille can potentially both outscale Lissandra and Jarvan. Lissandra and Jarvan want to be team fighting eventually, and Ryze and Camille should be able to win almost any configuration of 1v1s as the game goes on, with Galio anchored in the mid lane and Perk's wave clearing. So if you hit, you could go Hurricane Rush here and just start 1-3-1 super early and have Hurricane Callisto with a Galio, and then Lee Sin is just a roaming death squad as the Galio can join late, and you just hard win lanes. So the 1-3-1 here is really, really powerful on the side of G2. So I look at this draft, and I like the draft from G2 more than I like the draft from Vitality, but it's another one of those games where you're like, man, if Mowgli gets out there, who knows what might happen with this. Like, Rek'Sai, Lissandra, Jarvan, you can't ask for better solo lanes to be ganking. And then, you know, Lucian 2 items with some gold leads, with strong start. If you get the Baron, then everything falls into place. Like, Baron is your super main objective here if you're G2. Baron is really big for you here. Baron should be a game closer for them if you get it at a good timing. So, both teams doing a lot of stuff. Interesting to watch. Different from my region, and that's a good thing. I like seeing a bit of different things. Alright, let's make Vedius a bit quieter. That's too quiet. This is definitely someone's kink, turning Vedius's audio down when he's on stream. But I got it low. So Vedius, you're there, but you're not there. You're going to have to deal with it. Now we can fast forward through. Oh, wait. I don't want to make it quite louder. Don't get louder, Vedius. Don't get any ideas. Let's open up. I'm seeing a pretty defensive start here. Visual bugs. Always amazing. Now, Pillar doesn't provide vision in Brush anymore, right? From what I remember, it doesn't. So, I think that was nerfed at some point. But, obviously at that point, it was just about safety rather than anything else. Lets you put it down. When it comes to wards, it's actually a lot of trades of vision. So, the Pixel Brush is owned by G2 on the bot side. On the top side, it's about even. So, I guess overall, there's more information for Jankos, and it's why he chooses this fight. They've got vision on the entrance top side. He walks in here, and it's kind of a weird start, because if you think back to how this game started, the ward got cleared. They knew that. Maybe they didn't know it, but they should have known it. If you look at CS numbers to know the ward was cleared. So now Rek'Sai's taking a gamble to go down there to try to take this scuttle It's a really nice path from Jankos, actually. I like the path, and I wonder if it was an adaptation or if it was standard, but Jankos just goes down, finds the Rek'Sai, and we see a lot more junglers doing this, of going red buff into bot side play. And Mowgli's like, damn, that was unexpected. It was really well played, I think, by G2. Based on what happened level 1, where they cleared out the vision, that made that play more likely. I think in general, it came together. Why is Vedius talking about Ardent Sensor? I don't remember anything about that. Anyway, so regardless, now Mowgli has no flash. And that means she's much less of a champion, Rek'Sai. Like, you need that flash to be able to hit lanes most of the time. Was spotted in... I don't know if it was actually spotted on any vision there. Yeah, it was spotted on the vision. So Mowgli's been tracked really well. Jankos blew a flash. Like, G2's way ahead in this early game. So it's been nice to see them choose some proactive paths. Wunder really, really screws this up. Cabochard plays it well. Alright. So, let's talk about how the matchup is supposed to work and how this happens. So, this was when I was like, oh no. I was so excited for G2. Let's VOD review this series. And then this happens. And I was like, oh no. So you guys know, the way you play Camille top. We haven't had Camille top meta for a little while now. So it's kind of a bit forgotten. But Rascal's trying to play it a lot. Let me see it from Wunder here. Is Camille top against Jarvan doesn't work. And doesn't really work against almost any champion unless you can take aggressive hookshot trades. You work as Camille by taking hookshot trades through press the attack or conquer in this case, and then backing away. So you usually want either vertical jungling or just a huge priority lead around the mid to top side that allows you to just take a hookshot trade whenever you want one. That's how you play the lane. You have to hookshot aggressively. Otherwise, you lose basically every trade. You can't put points in your W. It was nerfed too much. So he takes a hookshot trade, but my question is, look at where the lane is at. What is the hookshot going to get? I guess he doesn't want to lose. And he has 3 corrupting potion charges. Like, I don't know why that was where you did the hookshot trade. It's really, really peculiar. So that's just a really poor play from Wunder. Because you think about it, and you're like, what do you get? You're level 3. We just had a series where we're trying to go next level on why people got what they got. What is Wunder going to get here? Best case scenario, he misses Cabochard and gets the minion, I guess, but then he's in turret range, so I assume he wants Cabochard. But I just don't see why that's the spot to do it. As the enemy minion wave is crashing, when there's no like cannon minion that you're going to pick up, I don't see what he's going to get, what the best way to go is. Seeing Vedius here. He doesn't want the wave to get frozen on turret, but let's watch this wave, right? Let's understand it. So the minions are coming, and you understand a little bit of how that freeze is going to happen, and you also see that Lee Sin is bot side, so you're not going to get help from the jungle. But what are you hookshotting? Because the champ is on top of the minion. So, like that, it's not like this is almost out of turret range. Like, let's watch this again. Like he's way under turret there. Like, this is really, really strange hookshot to take. I agree with your basic point of lane freeze, but it's really strange. Like, you can't get everything. There's no reason that he couldn't have backed, and then Lee Sin can just back with him and run with him up lane and make sure that they don't get the freeze there. So even that premise, which is the most like glass half full premise, it's super peculiar time to come. Because then what's your alternative, right? Because then he's like, all right, the enemy jungler might be top side. I need to TP in, stop the freeze that I couldn't get with my hook shot. But then he TPs onto the minion wave as aggressively as possible. He still needs to take hookshot trades. The minion wave's still coming. Like, he could have asserted how long this is going to take, and then Rek'Sai just walks up and kills him, because of course he does, right? Like, you have to take hookshot trades here. So he plays like the jungler could be there, because this is the moment I absolutely can't get a freeze, but then he teleports in as if the jungler isn't there and dies. Like, he doesn't die, okay, he falls low, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's really peculiar. approach to take. Eventually, look, he gets the push off, so maybe it's all worth it, right? To blow through the corrupting potion and get out. But that's telling you that Wunder really believed that the freeze is important, and then amusingly, he's going to get frozen on. Deep freeze happens topside. And Jiizuke, man, this guy's always looking for a roam timing. So I guess in hindsight, he probably wishes there was a freeze. It wouldn't have gone quite like this, but let's understand Jiizuke's roam. So if you remember, Jankos had to go topside to basically help him push it in. We saw already that Jankos, otherwise would have been, it would have been out and got frozen on anyway. So Jankos has to go topside, but he doesn't place any vision on the way. He still has a ward, but of course it's for mobility. So Lissandra pushes in. She's level 4 with most of mana, but no boots, of course, and no teleport, because she just teleported back to lane. So she got a favorable back timing. This is really well played by Jiizuke. When does he actually recall, though? When does he come in with... So he TPs in with item lead, shoves. They know Jankos around the top side. So Lee Sin was originally going to be ganking the Ryze lane in the middle. That makes a lot more sense. So as this duo, there is actually some kill pressure onto Lissandra, because you just really hold your second Q for a long time. You stop rolling as Ryze, and then you try to deny Lissandra a chance to Aftershock proc. And if she doesn't Aftershock proc, she just can die in the mid lane. So that's why they're trying to make that play. But then, of course, Lee Sin has to go and salvage top side. So Jankos' first plan was mid lane, had to give that up. Goes to the top side, but can't put any vision down along the way. And with his shop advantage, Lissandra just pushes in and roams. And this is a real Jiizuke thing. His Predator Galio was like the most crazy thing I've ever seen and was never done again. But he's happy to pack up. The freeze is on, and you just had Wunder suicide for to stop a freeze, and then almost suicide a second time. So you know this freeze is going to be a fight point. And that's why Jiizuke's roam is great, is that the comms should be from Cabochard, they're going to come try to stop this freeze. They just suicided for it twice. So, very good read by Jiizuke. He's in the right place at the right time, freshly shopped. This is an awesome play from Vitality. It's a sort of play that I'm sure was emboldened by having a coach like Yamada, who does put a lot of trust in his players and how they play. Because it's absolutely all in order. And even if Caps pinged him out, even if there was a chance he was going there, just given the premise of this guy literally suicided twice to make this happen, I think it's fine. The Jiizuke, so the Jankos part is worth mentioning here because Jankos was obviously very self-critical on the after match. He goes in, let's watch it slowly. Let's watch how this comes. Because Jankos is really critical, so I think we should give him some rope to get out of that. Let's see how it goes. He comes in, flashes. His Q is pretty bad, don't get me wrong. He would have got the 1 for 2. I don't think this game changes if Jankos hits the Q. If he hits the Q, he can say, well, we got a 1 for 2. But can we agree, chat, that the bigger problem here is just the amount of lust for stopping a freeze that happened on the top side? Like, yes, the Q is bad. And Jankos as a pro player is like, if only I hit that Q. But they get themselves into this crazy spot where they're so deep under a turret against a possible roam because the freeze is the thing that has to be denied, right? So, I don't know. I'm kind of not so much on the Jankos hate right there. I think it's more about the larger play. If he hits it, he won't tilt. Well, this is a different problem, so I'll give you that one, Shinji. But again, I think the earlier decisions to lust for this freeze are a problem. Because none of that happens, then Jankos is in a different spot on the map and the further points don't happen. So we watch this play. Gets Cabochard. Jankos is still waiting because he knows there's a chance someone might be coming. They're so caught in two minds here at G2, you know? There's no exit plan. It's all very... In the VOD review now, thinking back to it, it's kind of ordered, right? Because it's all about the freeze that clearly Camille is so desperate to stop. But I think they just had to go for a more linear, bring Jankos after a back timing up top, then he can go get his Krugs Raptors. They were so greedy trying to make that happen. And now you're kind of in that chasing the lost territory, right? Now you're Jankos, and now Wunder's like, what am I going to do? You got to come top. We can all in. And chasing the lost is not something we talk about that much on real games, on stage games or on cast, but it's that I've made 2 mistakes in the same spot, so I'm going to go there and make it right. It's the same as doubling down in 21 or in Blackjack. And that's what Jankos is doing. He's doubling down and saying, I'm coming back again. And so he comes back again and dies again, right? Like, they're doubling down here. Like, if we're at the casino, like, Jankos is busto at this point. And from his mental after the game, I know he was not too happy, but that's the thing is, how much of this all happens, guys? Like, again, so we're 6 minutes in, top lane's died twice, jungle's died twice. All of this happened top lane in the pursuit of a push. We saw a hook shot in, suicide, double kill, and Jankos dying, all around the same scene, the crime. And Vitality has been so aware of what to do. They keep pathing topside just because the first premise of this crazy guy at level 3 eat into turret range just to stop a freeze, they're desperate, was the correct read. That was the right call. And I just loved that they kept going there. Korean team doesn't go there. They don't expect the 3rd attempt at suiciding. So credit to Vitality. They read their opponents really well here. That sounds like an insult, but it's not. It's actually Vitality knowing G2 better than G2 did at that moment. But I'm not so much in the hit your damn Qs side for Jankos. I'm much more in the let's be a bit more ordered about what freezes we can stop and how selfish we can be about getting the lane in the right spot. You don't need to be that good. You don't need to be that far ahead in this lane matchup. Your outscale is big. Yes, he still has a CS advantage despite dying twice and his jungler dying twice. But yeah, it's intriguing. Too much lust from G2. Someone need to call someone down there between Wunder and Jankos. In my opinion, my read is that it should have been Jankos saying, no, I can't help you with that. So it's already 1,600 gold lead, but 61 CS to 49. Lissandra's roams mean a 20 CS lead in an outscale matchup. And it's even CS bot lane, which I think is probably advantage Trundle among all these champions, right? Like, Trundle's probably the weakest laner here, so him getting parity is fine, but I was never willing to write off this game because it's only 1,600 gold for a 5-kill lead. That lets you know that objectives aren't going the way of Vitality, and you stick with the original analysis of Wunder and Caps outscaling when we reach a certain goal. And it's something that I wish that fans in other regions would talk about this more. Sorry, casters in other regions talk about this more, but you hit enough gold in this game, then Lissandra and Jarvan can't really hit the side lane against Camille and Ryze. Like, there's no way you can itemize Kabashad to be able to answer both in a side lane. Yes, Caps doesn't have teleport, but Wunder will win trades at most item break points against Jarvan, specifically 2 items onwards. It doesn't really matter if she's 1,000 gold behind. Like, her Precision Protocol is just a cool ability. It just kills you over time when you have 5 points E, 5 points Q. So it's a sort of game where if I'm on the cast here, I say, if this game hits 40,000 gold and Vitality can't make this game about a Baron or an Elder Dragon, or can't bring G2 to them in one lane, you lose this game in 3 lanes. Vitality only win in a team fight here. Meanwhile, G2 win in split when the game goes long enough. Early in this point, obviously, it's not a relevant point, but it's only 1,600 gold. Like, if G2 hits 40,000 gold when Vitality hits 45,000 gold, G2 probably still wins the game. So there's a lot of outscale potential here for G2. And that's the sort of thing that I would want the comms to be including is, why did we draft this team? When does it win? It could be early if you get the right ganks off, but it will be late. And those are the important comms you need to stop things like tilt from coming through. Trying to make kind of a desperate engage bot lane, but there's no flash on Mickey, but no one dies further. Keeping here is good because you know that some important skills are down. And they continue to trade up, right? And trading up everywhere. This just feels like a lost game because they have 8 kills at 9 minutes. You have 10 kills in this game. And 5 of them are around the top lane. Further kill to Jankos here. But Caps comes and gets the shutdown. Relevant. As he's the only person who's kind of watched on this game. And he's no doubt been like, what is happening in my lanes, you know? Bot lane has 2 deaths. Top duo has 6 deaths. And Caps has just been farming in a good matchup and being roamed on a bit, but there was no way for him to counter roam. So Caps has just done his thing and is a side lane win condition, which is something important to remember. Cabochard will build damage to try to keep up with Wunder. He won't have magic resist. That Ryze will hit item points where you just can't be tanky against Camille and Ryze. It's impossible. They do physical, magical, and true damage. So, yeah. Ryze picking up a kill here, and again, the gold lead never ballooning is what's important to remember here. But when you see all the plays from G2, like a lot of their kind of poor chasing the lost decisions topside, you just assume they're going to keep throwing. But it gets harder and harder. As you get more gold, as the game opens up a bit, it gets a little bit harder to throw as games go on when you have such a strong 1-3-1 that can be very maneuverable. Anyway, for now at least, keep pushing. Turret plates, 1 to the side of G2, and then 4 to the side of Vitality, so that's part of where the gold lead is. Rift Tower taken early, pre-14. And Suki already having a bit of a struggle in the mid lane, as we can see. And that's before Caps has any real items. I love the Rift Tower for plates here. They're in a very defensive macro position. If you look at the minimap, it's important to note. This play that happens, Rift Herald is taken as Jankos is backing. So they have no priority around this lane, so of course it's going to be taken. And they're able to get Jizuke through a struggling moment. They're roaming first because they have priority in bot lane. That's just the reality of Lucian. And they're roaming up for a plate gank as Jankos is in base. Callista's stuck in mid lane. There's no TPs up. This is really, really well executed from Vitality. Another good macro play around their leads. So I've liked their play. They've read their opponent well. They've used their resources well. And they've taken mid lane turret. And now Caps is going to be forced into a defensive 1-3-1, which is what I call when you lose turret and then you just have to hit the side lane anyway because otherwise it can be very tricky to use your champion. So really good play so far from Vitality. No doubt Yamato is backstage just stoked about where things are at right now. In every objectivable, every observable metric, they are super far ahead of their opponent. Caps is in a building state on his build, doesn't even have Merc treads yet. Yes, he has cleanse, but doesn't have magic resist or health in the build. Things are looking really good right now for Vitality. And all they want to do is force team fights at item breakpoints. Consider their item breakpoints here. Lucian uses his Blade the Ruin King better than Callista uses hers as a 1-item spike because he has access to his passive. So you look at the enemy team, they got no tanks. Even Galio's not a tank. So you're going to be hitting Blade the Ruin King on a lot of members. 1-item power spike for Lissandra, better than Arise, you know? It's early gold numbers. Like we mentioned, it's outscale comp from G2. So Tyr needs to stack. Seraphs needs to be generated, so Luden's way stronger. Warrior Enchant versus Warrior Enchant. Well, Rek'Sai has the 1v1 matchup against the Lee Sin, and he also has a back timing coming in soon, so we'll have more items. And then the top lane is Tiamat Phage versus Ninja Tabi. So all items right now are stronger for Vitality. Every 2v2 and 3v3 are leads for them, and that's pre-14 minutes when you can be getting things like turret plates. So far they have 11 turret plates, which is pretty much the entire gold lead here. And you get Attila solo gold in the bot lane. They use their items better. Only if they're outnumbered could things go wrong, but Cabochard was well aware that he might be under a dive. So this is so far Vitality being super strong when their champions and comp is at its strongest. And yes, very good moment for Vitality. But my guess is that we're going to see some big turning points in this game that make us reevaluate how they're trying to close out a lead. Because right now, they've done everything they can. Their first 14 minutes is A+. not quite S tier, but A+, man. That's a really good first 14 minutes. Everyone's ready to smack their opponents with their wallet. And it turns out, if this was Pokemon, G2 are weak to wallets because right now they have no way to answer with similar gold, and they don't have similar gold. They're behind in gold. I mean, look at the top. It's Black Cleaver versus Phage. Like, they're so far ahead at this point. So Mowgli makes the read. They keep getting greedy. Things right now super good for Vitality. Taking over the map. Now the river control ward sticking from the side of G2 is not ideal, but they should be able to scope that one out. They're roaming around, doing their thing. It's a pretty predictable dive, so it's smart of Wunder to start roaming back, but I love the pillar there. Pillar actually was really good. It was pretty sick. They get the kill, but so let's talk about this play, because this is where the mini-map gets interesting. So this play happens here. It was pretty clear that Vitality were going top lane. Like, that's kind of how they had to, that's kind of where they had to be going. So Wunder knows his number is up and he tries to escape. Watch the mini-map from G2. They already have given up on Wunder for now. They're like, okay, I guess you're going to die. Ryze takes his time. Remember, he's not making this play. Watch the Ryze play here. Ryze is not making this rotation in order to save Wunder. Wunder for sure is dead, you know? Like, there's no way he's going to save him here. Ryze is trying to pick up whatever's spilling, and then in the meantime, Lee Sin pushes mid as Kalista pushes bot lane because they're fighting in between two turrets. Like, terrain-wise, there's a lot of advantage here. Eventually, Mickey's going to come back, but he doesn't have turret threat himself. Like, Vitality are diving inhibitor turret super early, and G2 make the right call. It's right for Perkz to stay in lane. It's right for Jankos to push in mid. If you want to mitigate your losses, you definitely make the proactive move and stay in lanes, because you're getting solo farm, solo experience, and solo gold onto Perkz. And then you look at the dive, and it didn't really change the game state very much. It's another kill onto Wunder. It's a bit more of the dregs cleaned up here, but it doesn't change how strong the Ryze is. And it's a scenario where we just mentioned that Vitality should win every skirmish and should win every fight, but then they're fighting in between inhibitor and inner turrets and trying to pull off really, really robust ganks that actually distract from how strong their champs are. Like, look at Attila. He's monstrously powerful. He got Essence Reaver Blade, the Ruin King. So in any sort of even scenario, you hit people with your wallets. You're like, look at my nice items. I'm killing you. And they're like, well, thank you very much, sir. Like, there's nothing else G2 can do. But instead, Vitality goes so deep that they find an even trade under inners. The map control actually goes away from them because two lanes were pushed away from them. And now you're resetting after spending all the time playing deathmatch. And that's where things can get tricky. Jankos comes bot lane. They force Cabashad off a wave. Vitality had way more map control earlier. And they had item leads on champions that use their items better early to just take over areas. You put down your control ward and say, well, you can't walk past me. I'm waiting here in the brush, and I have items that will kill you. But going for dives actually lets that down. And it leads to scenarios like this, where there's a long lane bot lane there wasn't before. They can try to actually play the same piggyback style that Mowgli and Jizuke are playing with Ryze Lee Sin, which I think do it better than Lissandra Rek'Sai at some points in the game. And now, here's the flow on. Again, remember how this game was going. Vitality controlled the map. They had the turrets down. Outer turret ring was down. G2 had almost nothing. The only turret G2 have taken is that bot lane turret they took in trade. Before anything happened, G2 couldn't get 20 turrets. But now, they're returning to the scene of the crime on inner top lane. And inner turrets being down early will often bait you to get into very bad map positions. We already talked about this in SKT Griffin, but there's a huge defender's advantage if you're trying to poke around an inhibitor turret. Like, it's very defended favored in terms of where they are. It allows respawns to get there faster. We're not at the 20-minute mark yet, but you can understand there's the proximity to it. And there's a lot of flank avenues for the enemy. So if you watch this play, Vitality have just been kind of hard pushing down the lanes, so they have some wards. Control ward on the left of the screen, control ward that's too shallow to do anything. But they don't actually have a lot of control around the red side river, around red side jungle. So they just end up in just the most awful spot. Attila gets flanked because he started mid lane. Like Attila started mid lane. He's here in the mid lane and then tries to make an escape with Jack Troll. But they're in a very, very weird spot, and Caps can come from the back with his global that we already knew he had. These are areas where Wunder can clean up fights because Hookshot gets immense value. You can go over walls and threaten stuns. It feels like Vitality found the most convoluted way to get not much out of the gold they had. Like, they had a comp that, with their 35,000 gold, did it better than anything G2 could do, because G2 needs to wait on item spikes and the champions don't scale in the same way. And they just have this super awkward fight where everyone is so overextended on the side of Vitality that G2 trade up when they were 8,000 and 7,000, 6,000 gold behind. So this is where Vitality should have been going for much more simpler plays. I think where they were at in the game, you just push 2 lanes because you can't push 3 lanes as easily, and you take over a side of the jungle. Instead, they had kind of intermittent vision around the red side jungle, and they were so far up. So they got some blue vision, no control vision notice apart from the ward on the left. And so let's see how they make their defense here. Jack Troll and Attila start kiting up, but that's what happens when you're against Fates, Cole, Ryze, Realm Warp, Lee Sin. They have a lot of mobile champions to shut them down, and then there's nowhere to kite to. So look, there is some vision there, so it's unfair to say they had no vision in the red side jungle, but they had no control. They had no things they knew for sure because a lot of their vision was regular wards. And it was just really awkward. So now you pause the game and you're like, all right, well, the clown crew of Wunder and Jankos, who like died 7 times in the first, early parts of the game, they're hitting their items and they're behind the Jarvan, but the farm numbers are not hurting them. The Rek'Sai's been slowed down on farming because she's been shadowing laners. And Caps and Perks are both actually, they haven't died. A lot of gold on the Ryze as well. Where Ryze is now, they have to really blow him up quickly. And this is the can't blow you up build. It's not Righteous Glory, but it is the Rylai's for target acquisition. And now, as Ryze, you are epically tanky. You've got 2,500 health plus here. And also the Rylai's to slow. So you can peel really well with this Ryze build. You can nuke one person, because you got ability power, of course, but you can peel well. And you can stand the test of time. So Ryze, I would say at this item break point, smashes Lissandra in the 1v1 and does fine against Jarvan. Now, if Jarvan hits EQ and Rek'Sai's there, you can probably burn the Ryze, but you'd be surprised. You look at the items and you're really baited into thinking that Jarvan would win a 1v1, but I'm actually pretty confident that Ryze would already win the 1v1. And then you have a lane assignment problem of your own creation. All of the disarray and the fact that the shutdown went on to the Ryze, and you didn't actually play around your gold lead when your items were at its strongest. I wouldn't say the item breakpoints have come together yet for G2, but they're closer. And when finally Wunder has something, things can go bad. So we watched 2v2 in the bot side here. Yeah, there's just no way for Rek'Sai and Lissandra to do anything to Caps. That's a full rotation. Caps lives through it, and they get a double kill, right? So this is already a sign. They've tried to dunk on the Ryze, but they didn't do it with the Jarvan. They did it with the Lissandra. And yeah, another mistake is being happened because they're trying to bully the Ryze, who was the only person who actually, has been working out in the gym the last 20 minutes. The Ryze is buff, so it's the wrong target choice again from Vitality. It's kind of interesting how their first 14 minutes are so flawless, and they've made pretty one-note calls that I think have been... After scouting G2 so well, it almost feels like G2's now scouting Vitality well, and it was the same thing that was talked about in the post-game interview, I guess. So it seems like they've just swapped identities now, and now you look at the map state, and you're like, actually, The vision advantage is for G2, which is kind of amazing with how this game started and everyone was dying. Like, people were chain feeding earlier. Like, a lot of chain feeding, and now G2 have map control. They have map control. They don't have all their globals just yet, but those are coming soon. They were able to reclaim so much map control after the overextension topside, and if I'm Yamato, I paused the VOD for that dive in between two towers. I said, what's the best case here? Like, the best case is you kill someone and you get, I guess, the outer target. You're never going to get the inhibitor at that point. So the incessant returns to the top lane, I think, were too many from Vitality. Almost the same as G2 having too many returns to the outer turret. But I think now we can start judging G2's macro a bit more cleanly, because the gold lead is no longer as meaningful in this game. We're getting closer to 40, 45,000 gold, which is when we said that G2 would turn around and be able to fight a bit more. So it's now going to be a bit more of, can we glean how G2 play out this game? Like, for example, we can look at the minimap. Ryze chooses the right amount of waves to push out, then backs away. It's a super long lane, so you can't go for that inner turret there. No turret pressure because it's such a long lane, and control ward's starting to stick from Vitality, so Caps backs away, playing the map very well. Camille is on the bot side with a TP disadvantage, so this is a moment where you could look for a collapse and Wunder wouldn't be able to collapse. So 9 people can get top lane. I guess not Attila, because Attila's actually taking down Raptors, spotted on a ward. If they spotted him there, it means they're not going to be as worried about the TP play. Lissandra, Jarvan are 2 of the best teleport gankers in the game. You're not that bad on a Camille, but Jarvan's tanky and does damage. Lissandra is Lissandra. So your goal is to take Baron here. So I'm going to be looking at control wards and just how they spot around the Baron, because they should be able to find a way to get picks around Baron. They have such reliable TPs in both lanes. They have a TP advantage as well. You can outnumber at every moment as Vitality and put down aggressive vision. And when it comes to people who can walk up, Rek'Sai is slippery enough. Trundle's pretty slippery as well. But the Ardent Censer onto Trundle. Obviously, this has been memed a lot, and a lot of people sitting on Reddit, but if you're on the VOD review and don't know the interaction, Stoneborn Pact is a rune that used to be around, and now it's Font of Life, which is pretty similar. Anytime Trundle card controls someone, including slows, you get a very minute heal from the slowing effect. So Trundle puts on a pillar, it slows down 4 people. Anybody who auto-attacks someone that has been slowed by Trundle gets a very small heal. It's 5 heal plus 1% of his bonus health, something like that. You know, it's a minute heal, but then it's a healing effect that was provided by Trundle, so it procs Ardent Censer, and that is the exact interaction that happened there. The reason why I know it clearly, and obviously the casters here took a bit of a reaming for not putting 2 and 2 together, is because there was a famous game that Snake played where SOFM went Athene's Unholy Grail Zac jungle, which is already epically troll, as we know. Back when, I mean, this is not that long ago, it's like a year and a half ago. And we were like, wait, why would he go Athene's Unholy Grail Zac? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And it was the Stoneborn Pact interaction. And so Trundle with Ardent Censer became a thing for quite a while in season 6 and 7. So it's definitely something that, you know, it's a little bit surprising that was missed, but it's a very kind of like hidden interaction, right? So it's just one of those things. But I was hit over the head with it because I had to stare at this Athene's Unholy Grail Zac and understand what the hell was going on. So we'll stay on this point because we were distracted by a history lesson there. Remember what G2 have. They have lane assignments that can't be beat. Double TP, strong TP gankers, and the ability to burn the Baron and turn well from the Baron with a TP. Just got a lane assignment. Ryze spot lane with no cleanse, but no TP is the more important thing. So, smart to start the Baron. When it comes to flank wards, they even have this really good ward to the right of Jankos. So, that's a really good ward for Lissandra to come on. Coming on the Glacial Path, even a Blasting Plant to get closer. So, Correct decision here is to start the Baron. Now, you wish you were doing this with a bigger lead, but you're doing it with double Mountain Drake. So it's one of those things where you have to check faster. The Baron is falling really fast. Now, I actually didn't see what happened to Lissandra. So we're toggling vision. So Lissandra's threatening a TP from this point onwards, and Ryze will not be able to react. Ryze from this point compared to Lissandra will take... How long do you reckon it's going to take Ryze to get there? I would say the better part of 9 seconds, whereas Lissandra gets there in 3.5. It might be more. It might be 11 seconds for Ryze to get there. So many TP options here, but Lissandra's on a recall. So let's watch the play. Burning Baron. You know this is going to be a 4v4, not a 5v4, because Lissandra's actually, I guess, looking for an item timing. It's just getting pretty low on mana, which I imagine was communicated from G2. So let me just let's do it in slow speed to understand how this all goes. So they've kind of at this point accepted that Jizuke is not going to be there. So they're just going to fight 4v4. Now, the 4 from G2 doesn't include Caps, who has most of their gold. So you can understand that. So the gold lead here is effectively a larger gold lead than it appears, purely because so much of the gold is on Caps and he's not going to be present at the fight. So the ward comes in and Cabochard turns really early. At this point, Jackdaw, I guess, could flash over the wall. Doesn't want to do that. Mowgli could go over the wall. And it was waiting for QR. But if you notice, it's kind of alarming, right? But Cabochard, who's pretty strong, but mostly built damage, goes EQ. He gets taunted and basically one rotation from G2. They can turn all into him. And this is the problem of going over the wall as a 1. If you go over the wall as a 1... that it's very easy for G2 to make the call of kill the guy in front of us. They all turn and burn him down. And then all of the enemy gold is gone. Because so much of the gold is on Cabochard. Rek'Sai goes in 1 by 1. So this is kind of a dominoes thing. And G2 win purely because of the poor turn from Cabochard timing. Like, he doesn't have anyone backing him up. You need double instant flash over the wall if you're gonna EQ. And it could have been with a Lissandra flank. He wouldn't have known that Lissandra was only going to recall there. You could still have teleported with a bit of mana. So it's a very disconnected call around Baron. I know Vitality have been criticized about their Barons before. But I think, again, they kind of contrived to lose the maximum in this scenario. They lose the Baron. And the turn is really well communicated. I think G2 showed good synergy here. But it becomes a bit easy. Cabochard, with a mostly damaged build, goes in. Everyone turns on him. No one can back him up because he's behind a pit. Then Mowgli goes in because it was waiting for the arm timing on her ultimate. So she's dead. And it just feels like 4 people got to kill 1 member of Vitality a couple of times. Yeah, it's pretty big mistakes there. Really nice clean stuff from Wunder on the end. Knows his ranges on his E. So, and again, like, there's going to be people in chat. Like, I see someone right now. Is EQ just through the game? There were some big problems earlier. Remember, they already bloodlusted for no objective in between 2 turrets on the top while they got pushed a bit. That wasn't going to be mortal, but that was definitely, you know, like, if this is David and Goliath, like, Goliath, like, stepped on a pebble that he shouldn't have. He kind of chose to step on a pebble. But then he just kept walking on rocks. Like, that's the thing is, no one of the throws, with how good an early game they had, should have been game-ending. But that's the 3rd now in a row. And chasing the loss for G2 in the early game was a reason they should have lost. And going in too hard for those EQs and stuff is something bad for Vitality. So you're like able to say, Pop Smithy, what was worst, G2 or Vitality? And actually, the answer is Vitality. And the reason for that is that G2 made mistakes in the early game trying to get things they shouldn't have gotten. That was mistakes around how they managed the 5 deaths topside around getting the turret. But at the same time, they were getting pretty good CS, and they were pushing the wave, and they have the outscale comp. Meanwhile, Vitality have the 1-item, 2-item power spike comp, and hit that 1-item, 2-item early. So like they're even stronger. They're online before they should be. You know, they showed up early with all their items. But then with that time, which was always going to be finite. We love Ryze, Camille, 1-3-1 as the game goes on. And in general, this teamfight comp is pretty even on both sides. But the 1-3-1 part, G2, especially around the Ryze, has a really unique lead. They let those people get their items because they injected gold into the game. That's reason why I put Vitality as a more critical lens, is that G2 threw early, but then stabilized with a comp that outscaled, and Vitality threw later in the game with kind of a lust to end the game, you know, like, oh, we got all this gold, so let's go do whatever we want. Let's punish them again. They're going there again. And to me, that's the more unforgivable sin of the two, given the fact that outscale existed for G2. And now this game still takes more left and right turns, as we know, but this is my basic opinion on that. Now Wunder has Baron, so nothing Suzuki can do, but doesn't want to be too greedy, auto-attacking turrets. He learned. Good stuff, Wunder. Ryze is pushing in Jarvan. Again, no lane assignment works. Look at the difference between these two champs. Now, Cabochard can't enter lane against Caps. Caps has Death Cap and then 2 off-tank items as huge burst of ability power with Baron. And Cabochard is dealing with Baron buff minions that he doesn't want to be dealing with. And he has full damage build and he can't burst Caps, so he will lose the 1v1 to confirm some of our earlier suspicions. So lane assignments here don't work any better if you have it the other way around, because Ryze always outscales the Lissandra and even earlier. So yeah, Vitality definitely too emboldened in the mid game and made some pretty critical errors there. But it's kind of their way. Like they live by the sword, die by the sword. And smart reads early got them the lead, but it's so hard to win from here. And yet this game has more turns. Like I thought this game was over for sure. I thought this was the G2 stabilization, but it doesn't quite go that way. Good positioning from Jankos, just shadowing. He's got the control ward to swat anyone coming in. They get the inhibitor, it's a freebie. So the play so far is good. Caps has flash up, so very toothless EQ coming in. And the moment you see that many members, Camille gets another turret. So we're getting really in a spot where G2 is very, very favored. I think the moment the Baron went down, G2 went up to about in my mind, 85% to win, just because of how their draft works. But they make a couple of errors here. Like, so why is Jankos so far up? So Jankos is just melee auto-attacking onto an inhibitor. I don't think that's necessary. You're playing 3 lanes and Camille had just backed off, so you don't actually have any reverse pressure. That's kind of the egregious thing, is they get to spend... Look how much time they're wasting here chasing on for kills while there's not turret threat. Like Camille had already pulled away, showing that Wunder was reading the map well and said, okay, there's not much to get around here. I'm just going to back away and get the blue buff. But that's when they look for melee auto attacks onto an inhibitor. So the right call there is to play around multi-lane pressure and try to punish, and they don't do that. So Camille's gone from clearing minions here. So Jankos is trying to, like, as 2 members alone, clump up to take the bot. But that means that Vitality can play 1 lane. And the sort of team fights they want, you know, what we talked about before, and them having a, you know, early game team fight comp around early item power spikes, are where they're not being split to death. And that was the only time when they wouldn't be split to death. So that was a poor decision to walk up in that scenario. But still, the lane assignments are really good. Like, Wunder is so strong. Super forgiving champion when it comes to late game and precision protocol damage. Super tanky. Could probably 1v2 Mowgli and Cabochard. Not going to be required to, and doesn't know who else is coming up. The Rek'Sai right now doesn't really do anything right. It's like a redundant Black Cleaver and a bit of damage, but we're after the point where that's important. Now Jizuke's here, so we're rotating through this lane. Good lane assignment from G2. You want your person with the teleport to be in the bot lane. You want the Ryze to be around the Baron. That's kind of basic thing as Baron is respawning. And Vitality have lost their ability to play multiple lanes. They know they can't win that way, so they have to just group earlier, put down control wards, and then actually execute on the Baron turn better. That's their only win condition here with a draft like this. They have to play around the Baron. Otherwise, they lose in 3 lanes. So, of course, you get a moment like this where a lot's happening around the map. Camille makes the right call. She's got teleport. She's a very high impact teleport champion, and she has good teleport wards to get to. So Vitality have to roll the Baron. We'll watch this play unfold as it goes. And they execute on the Baron. So how and why do they get to execute on the Baron is our next question, as we're close to finishing things off. So, premise, I can't match Camille on the side lane. She has teleport, and we have 2 teleport users, but they can't match her. So let's start and group the Baron. Correct premise. That is what you want to do. Vitality get control wards on the Baron. They know it's not going to be a perfect play, and that's why I like the fact that they start this Baron, because they lose the game if they don't. They have to start the Baron now. Otherwise, the game will be away from their control. Just like we praised both SKT and Griffin in their losses for trying to make something happen. So they start the Baron. They can't clear all this vision. There's 2 control wards. They don't have the luxury to deal with those. So they start up on the Baron. They clear a control ward. Let's look at who has control wards. Camille doesn't have any. She's not there. Doesn't matter. Lee Sin is in the area with a control ward, so that's good. News for G2 fans. Kalista doesn't have a control ward, and Galio Kesgos. They have 2 control wards. So they know the enemy isn't exhausted of vision, but they need to start it now. Otherwise, if you wait another 2 rounds of control wards, Camille's just pressing Q on your inhibitor is gone. So they know they have to walk out. It's double mountain as well, so they have the burn advantage. G2 try to put out as much speed. They're just trying to delay as much as they can. That is the correct thing for G2 to do. G2 reset. The lane ward gets a lot of value. It previously spotted Perks, but of course he was clearing minions. Now it spots Jankos. And they still have to make the same move. Like, they don't have the luxury to do anything but this. Suke's a little bit far away, but will stop Kalista on the way. If she needs to, and of course can get over the wall. The Baron falls pretty far, and there are many times where this is not the right play. When you don't control the back of the pit, you can't even see Jankos, but you can't, as Vitality, set up aggressive wards here and answer the split push and start the Baron. Like, you made your throws. Like, you live and die by the game of throws. They made them earlier, so I like the fact that they say, this is the most we're going to get. And they're right. This is the most they're going to get. They're going to rush in here. There's no spears to respect. It's a 50-50 Baron between Mowgli and Jankos, or you can try to kill Jankos when he pops in the pit. Jankos pops in pretty early, and they're able to DPS him down. Could have waited longer as Jankos, but you understand why he made that play. Also, Wunder teleported. Is the TP here the right play? My thought is no. Because Wunder teleports without taking the inhibitor and a little bit late. So they don't even get inhibitor for Baron. And remember, the bot lane inhibitor is pretty hard to play around when the next Baron comes down, because you're going to have to play across the map. They take down Perks in the mid lane, and this seems like the game-losing throw. Like, this is a pretty big mistake from G2. In a high-pressure scenario, they could have just taken down the inhibitor and just gone for a 50-50 smite. It doesn't matter if Jankos goes in early, like, you tried, you didn't get it. But then this moment happens, as we know the game turns further. Let's watch down the attempt to finish the game. They make the decision to end the game, but it's very different, right? They don't have any side lane threat like we saw from SKT, from Griffin in the SKT series. They've got all 5 members, and no one's even low health in this play. Meanwhile, G2 have 10 seconds on Jankos. That's a long time. And they got to buy time. So Galio and Wunder both have their flash ups. So let's watch this one in slow motion. Could they have played this differently? Worth noting that Vitality have very short range turret damage. Lucian and Lissandra basically melee champions, right? This is a 5-man taunt. Remember that you don't have to play one lane here with the Baron buff minions. You probably should be fine, and you have health bars. If you have no health bars, I think you have to play one lane, but Vitality, they pile in, and they're not actually going to have threat onto Mikyx with that pillar, and they take a 5-man taunt. So the fact that they have 5 members is not relevant. It's actually 2 people hitting back on 5 people that can't hit them back because they're taunted. So a 5-man taunt happens there, Attila dies, of all people. Good target selection, I believe. Let's watch the replay for the target selection. Watch how it happens. The taunt flash into Wunder just saying, if Attila dies, we still have a chance. And you look at the rest of the team, and they do have melee damage dealers and Jizuke, but it's the right read as well. Wunder's so tanky at this point with Sterix. And they actually repel a Baron 2v5 without really any asterisks, purely because Vitality clump into a 5-man taunt. It doesn't matter if you have 5 members if they can't use their abilities. They're taunted. They can't attack. They can't do anything. That's a huge mistake. And then it's this yakety sack stuff where Jizuke has no mana, so eventually he's going to die. And things like that. So it's a really big mistake from Vitality. It's high pressure games, so that's why we see a lot of mistakes, right? Like, there's a lot of mistakes going on here. But I think everyone piled them up so heavily on G2's side, but I think Vitality's were more egregious. That's the weird thing, is I think Vitality made the two bigger issues of throwing against a comp that outscaled you purely to kill people, and then not being able to finish that game 5v2. Like, I think you give Vitality 10 goes at that, they do get it more often than they don't by far. So it was very surprising that the game was going to keep going, but it does. Happy days. Still time for good plays and bad plays to happen. We're just calling them out as they occur in front of us. But G2 at this point have super outscale inside lanes. Like, Jarvan's like, guys, I can't deal with this. Because you can just send Camille against him and then suddenly Adaptive Helm does nothing. And Ryze is unbelievably scary. All Lissandra can do is team fight or put down an ult and everybody else does the damage. She doesn't do damage or side lane against any of the threats here. So Lissandra's really, really stuck in this spot. And then Lucian as a champion can't really deal with Camille or Ryze. Like, Kalista at least can do some tricky things after you get through the initial CC. That's nice from Vitality. They put down control wards somewhere and try to make the game about them. And please remember, for every moment, the moment you get outscaled by a 1-3-1 comp, you need to, as Vitality, go as a group, put down your control wards, and take things. That's all you can do. You can't do anything else. There's no Baron to fight around. There's no Elder to fight around. So this is the moves you make. You walk in, you put down your control wards, and you say, come to the 5 of us. You can't play 3 lanes as fast as we can take down 1 turret. So, well played by Vitality there. At least they have now adjusted to the gameplay they have to make. That they never want to hit a side lane again. They can't. They have to stay grouped in order to win this game. But G2 have more ways to win the game, and potentially can just out-team fight them, as we've seen. So, this is where it's like still pretty hard for Vitality to do anything after they couldn't end the game on their Baron push. Minute 30. Let's remember this. So here's something to talk about for people who watched the whole stream. If you remember the play that SKT and Griffin made in topside, where they tried to siege down a top lane inhibitor, and then we saw the minute 30 mark hit with Baron respawning, and everyone backed away because they knew they needed to start the vision war on the way back, and they needed to get control, and they needed to be shopped and ready for Baron. Please note at the top left of your screen, the Baron is a minute 40 away, and we're not seeing that same attention to Baron here. Like, they're definitely responding to Baron a lot slower. Like, red buff and Krugs being taken by Attila before he's around at the Baron. So G2 actually gets Baron control for free, because Vitality still have sent no one near it. That's the surprising thing for me. That's something that I think Yamato should look at, is Vitality come bot lane, they get everything there. That was a nice play from them. Now, we know Baron is 1 minute 54 away. There's currently a bit of spot vision around, the control ward that was there for a flank earlier, and no real other division to speak of. But no one from Vitality goes anywhere near Baron for this whole minute countdown. You can watch it. Baron's being left there. No one's put down any Baron vision. No Baron at all. Elder is spawning, but way after Baron. They're disconnected, guys, so Elder doesn't matter. Trundle backs, the closest person to Baron, is still have no Baron vision. Control ward where he backed. Okay, that is at least some spotting ward here, but it's no control. G2, it's so easy. You know the enemy's gone from a full reset. Lysandre's showing on bot side. You get a lot of Baron vision here, and it's with a minute left on the Baron timer. So they've littered this area with wards. Now, they can't just keep control wards out, but these are actually all just Sightstone wards coming down there. So they have a lot of vision of every camp around Baron, and that's the angle Vitality are going to come in. And remember, we already mentioned it, Vitality are the team that need to be there first because they can't play the side lanes with the champions they have. So Jack Troll just kind of walking around doing what he can as a solo person. They were able to sweep out a lot of the wards, so that's at least good news for them. But one ward still sticks because so many were put down. G2 go bot lane. G2 can always kite top more reliably than the enemy because of the game state they find themselves in. Baron down 7 seconds, and now there's 1 control ward in the inventory of Vitality. Meanwhile, there is 3 on the side of G2. So we talk about this a lot. The vision exhaustion situation is there for Vitality, and you only want your vision exhausted as a team like this if you're the one starting the Baron and making the enemy come to you. Otherwise, it's going to run out of vision around it. That's the reality of it. So right now, at least, Vitality need to have control wards. And this is where Papa Smithy starts to get mad. Because, for example, let's talk about Jiizuke. You need to make this game about your next fight. Jiizuke backs and has Luden's, Morellonomicon, Zhonya's, Sorcerer's Shoes, and a refillable potion. He buys a needless large rod and he leaves the base. He decided that he didn't want a control ward, which would have been a very cool item for him. Rek'Sai is sitting on a stopwatch and a giant spell. Well, that's nice. And you do have Tremor Sense, but no control wards there. Cabochard has a BF sword. These are all the awkward spots you're in when you didn't end the game when you thought you would with all the combat stats you have. And now the only person with a control ward slot is Trundle. No one else can put one down. You can't have any control wards here. So then you can't get the fight you want around Baron without just face tanking it and hoping for the best. And this is pure YOLO. You got nothing other than YOLO at this point if you're Vitality. And that's why in the face of YOLO, you can do creative things. They know about the vision being minimal on the enemy side, so they don't have to make a vision game. They have a double control ward lead in the enemy red side and a control ward lead on Baron. Can you imagine this? They have 4 control wards on the map. Vitality can't place any. So actually what seemed like a Fiesta ending is actually super smart from G2. Because they have guarantee that they can back up Wunder in this piggyback play bot side, and they have Baron control. They're both. They're both things. Like, this is as if the Evelynn in the Griffin series had double control ward to guarantee she could backdoor. You know what I mean? Like, they have the double control ward on the pit and the double control ward to allow for this this Ryze to come in unspotted. It's suspected, as you could see. There is a blue ping around it, but now we're in this scenario where only Vitality can all in because we don't have any vision for the turn. We can't leave any vision. We have to start the Baron. But it's without their solo laners that, especially Cabochard, who had most of the gold this game. It's a support Trundle, a tank Rek'Sai, and Attila. And it's against, on this side, Perkz on Kalista. But you think about the 2 champions on the side of Vitality. Rek'Sai is not going to be tunneling to the Kalista. Trundle is going to do nothing. And Lucian is going to get zerged. And the thing is, the Galio can come in here, start with another multi-man taunt, and they just lose in every way possible here. Because the outscaled 2v2 side laners are actually amusingly like a Mexican standoff on the left, European standoff, I guess. And the Baron is happening on the top side where they'll win with these champions. Like, no one can get anywhere near Perkz. He's going to melee range against Attila, doesn't matter. So, can take him out there. Cabochard and Jiizuke can do nothing here. And it's just a huge price to pay for poor decisions around vision. But the vision here is so heavily on their side. And that confirms the outscale, so. Yep, Baron. Off the rift. That one's gone. Baron is claimed by Vitality, but it means so little this late in the game. I love the Realm Warp here. Really good Realm Warp. Wait for the minions to come together. Really nice play, because you skip over this and you can just finish the game. Really nice and cleanly done by G2. Just a call. It's a really cool play. It's very flashy, but it's not really one that needs to be slowed down. You can bring a minion wave with the minions, and then, yeah. you just end the game from here. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I think a lot of people come away down on G2 from this series, but the VOD review for them is a lot simpler than the VOD review for Vitality. The VOD review here for G2 is, alright, what's going on with this? Trying to stop a freeze on the top side. That's much more straightforward to address, because it was Jankos playing to what his top laner wanted too much. Like, the top laner is the one that wants to stop the freeze, otherwise he wouldn't have been looking for a hook shot under turret. And Jankos tries to back him up. It doesn't work. They misevaluate it. That can be adjusted. The comms there can be looked at. And then they make one poor call around Baron where they TP in an area where they should have just kept split pushing and look for a 50-50. So I actually think that G2's issues there are pretty solvable. Like, you don't chain in top lane very often, right? Like, that's just... I'm not willing to say that's a big problem with G2's chain inting. Like, it's something that happened in this moment, but it's not that big. I think for Vitality, the problem is that you got exactly what you wanted and then found kind of creative ways to lose that lead. Like, you were so strong so early when the enemy couldn't fight. Like, the enemy had a ceasefire, but you didn't agree to the ceasefire. Like, you had machine guns. Like, this was some World War I stuff. Like, and people get triggered by my talking about World Wars, so I shouldn't have done that. But you know what I mean, right? Like, one team was very outgunned compared to the other, but chose the wrong terrain to make it happen. And that's a big problem. That is a really big problem on the side of Vitality. That I think is something they've done quite a lot. So I think G2... I mean, Grabs was, like, so worried about this one, right? He's so worried about the analysis here. I just think I look at the big mistakes and I give them the benefit of the doubt that those are adjustable, but I'm not sure about some of the Vitality errors there. So it's unfortunate that it's a series that's kind of more defined by its errors than the good plays, but I think G2 mostly made some good plays there. And you also have players like Caps and Perks who, apart from Perks taking down the Mountain Drake, I guess those bad comms around the Baron and then being late for the Baron they decided to teleport for. Like, that one Baron setup, there's a lot of people with blood on their hands. And apart from that, I think they make a lot of good moves. So it doesn't necessarily give me a full opinion about G2. I'm going to have to review them again. But I actually think that G2 played significantly better than Vitality in this game. Even though Vitality had like 14 Dream minutes. Excellent first 14 minutes from Vitality there. Almost just won them the game. So that's the good thing. That's a good note for Vitality, is they played that early game really, really well and had some very nice next levels that could have just won them the game. And you need to kind of get them to update their game state. Like, they played the second 14 minutes like they played the first 14 minutes of we're so far ahead and everything's going to work for us, and didn't update when clearly the game was starting to slip away. Like, the moment you saw Ryze with 2 items and failing that dive on him bot lane, you needed to make some pretty significant updates that didn't happen in this game. So that's going to end the VOD review of G2 versus Vitality. Very different VOD review to the first series. Sort of thing where it's a best of one, and it was definitely really crazy, and G2 were in a really weird spot chasing the loss with their dives on the top side. But I think overall it kind of confirms to me that G2 will make some good proactive jabs. Like, I think their lane assignments are really good here, and they understood how to win. That's the thing, that the reason why I come away with some confidence about G2 is they knew they were going to win in the side lane, and they won this game in the side lane. And by the time that Vitality understood they couldn't win the game in the side lane, there wasn't many good decisions left up for them. Now, still, you make these mistakes enough against good teams, you will lose as G2. But again, my takeaway is mostly positive kind of signs for G2 with fixable things, but until you fix them, it doesn't matter. And for Vitality, it's really good early game and then a lot of mistakes afterwards. So it feels like the changes on the side of Vitality need to be more fundamental around shot calling, and for G2 it's cleaning up some pressure situations.